Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Creepy Articles series. So, the Creepy Articles series is where we discuss the gossip that is going on in these internet streets. So, if you guys see anything that you want to screenshot or anything that you want to gossip about here in the Pretty Girl Club, be sure to email me at exoticalsunited@gmail.com because some of you guys have been sending me messages about how suddenly the unambiguous Black female community has outgrown the colorism conversation. Have you ever noticed that? Ever since the exotical space came onto YouTube, suddenly we've got Paris Milan, who completely quit YouTube because I talked about my use of kojic acid and how I can tell when someone else uses kojic acid. And then we had Chrissy, who left the colorism conversation. Well, I don't think she'll be able to leave it. She can't discuss anything other than MLS women on her YouTube channel. But we've got people who are attempting to find who we are because they want to prove that we're quote unquote dark and ugly. And I find it interesting how you've got people trying to prove that all the exoticals are dark and ugly. Doesn't that tell you what they think of dark skin and what they think of blackness? So we have literally destroyed the Black empowerment space. We destroyed the golden sphere. And this is simply by us just creating YouTube channels. Like, we didn't come on here specifically to blow up YouTube like this and to turn YouTube upside down, but that's exactly what we did. So let's get into it. Why have Black women suddenly outgrown colorism channels? Number one, it's because of the exotical space here on YouTube. This channel calls out the hypocrisy and how unambiguous dark-skinned Black women were hiding behind the isms in order to express their hatred or jealousy towards mixed-race people or women who benefit from the isms. Because those of you who were on YouTube a few years ago, you guys remember those videos where Chrissy, for example, she pulled up that picture of that light-skinned Black woman with type 4 hair, and she talked about how she had 4 inches of fried leave out and wannabe Brazilian wavy because she had like a sew-in weave. She talked about how her hair wasn't blending. So a lot of colorism content creators, they were using the isms and hiding behind them so that they could actually just express their racism or jealousy against anyone that they viewed as more privileged than them. So one of their main talking points would be like, oh, you got the same Black man. The same Black man as who? As an unambiguous Black woman who you view as being at the bottom. So a lot of the ism content was very much based on competition for men. It was very male-centered. And ever since the rise of the exotical space, we decenter men and we decenter whiteness. Ever since we actually started discussing nuanced talking points, they can't compete with the talking points of the exotical space. If you look at my video that I just uploaded within the past week, it was called 23 Questions That Black YouTube Can't Answer. No one has been able to successfully respond to that video still because they can't answer any questions such as, what color is light skin? What's the darkest shade of light skin? Name Fenty shades. They can't answer questions like that. What is mixed? Are mixed people Black? The exotical space has actually provided answers to all of those questions, and also the exotical space is the only sector on YouTube that offers dozens of solutions to internalize colorism, texturism, and featureism. We talk about how getting rid of hierarchy thinking will help you to overcome colorism. We talk about privilege stacking. So if you have other privileges or privileges associated with your skin tone and your hair texture, to use those things to your advantage, because I actually believe that everybody has some form of privilege. There are pros and cons to everything. Okay, so there are privileges and disadvantages that come with being dark-skinned. There are privileges and disadvantages that come with being Black. This is the first sector on YouTube that actually sees things from more of a holistic perspective versus only seeing things through the lens of victimhood. But number two, in order to create colorism content, Black women had to speak on behalf of MLS women and speculate about other people's opinions of them. They had an external locus of control, so they would say things like, light-skinned women are trying to befriend you to outshine you. And now that there are 60 of us actual exoticals anonymously responding on YouTube, they can't handle the smoke because now we are responding for ourselves. So if somebody says, oh, this is what mixed women think, or this is what dark-skinned women with type 3 hair think of themselves, well, now we have actual dark-skinned women with type 3 hair responding and saying, hey, actually, no, that's not what we think. So that's another thing that kind of killed the colorism space on YouTube, is that we have women who actually benefit from those privileges who are now choosing to speak up for ourselves. And that was the whole point of the exotical space. Like, we got tired of people constantly speaking on our behalf, constantly speculating about who we are. So we decided to just create our own YouTube channels. Also, isn't it ironic how they told us to get out of their spaces because we were taking over the conversation and centering ourselves? And then we went out of our way to create our own space that's actually not even just based on race, because it's called Exoticals United, not Biracials United, not Mixed Race United, not Light Skins United. So we created our own name. Like, we took back a phrase that they used against us. We created our own space. We have over 60 channels at this point. And now suddenly they're still following us over to our space, wanting to police us. Oh, and another thing I forgot to say is I noticed that they love to try to use self-hate as a silencing tactic. So, for example, they'll say stuff like, the exoticals are all just self-hating, unambiguous, dark-skinned black women. They're saying that because a lot of black women have a fear of being called self-hating. And so they're hoping that by calling out a light-skinned woman wearing a weave or wanting to stay light-skinned or something, they're hoping that by calling that out, that they will silence you, because they're hoping that you have an insecurity about being self-hating. They're hoping that they can gaslight you into silence, or that they can get you to stop doing whatever you're doing to stack your privileges. They're calling you self-hating, similar to how they call rich black people sellouts. They'll be like, you're a sellout. You made all this money. You don't give back to the hood. So it's another way of saying, get your ass back over here in the black community where you belong. So it's another way of forcing you out of your fluid identity. They don't like that you can dip in and out of unambiguous blackness. They don't like that you're embracing and even flaunting or kind of like stacking your privileges. They don't like that because they don't understand that concept. They don't come from a background of people who level up. Because if you look at the colorism content, a lot of it was actually not focused on level up. It was speculating about how MLS women level up, and then making fun of MLS women for not leveling up. Like, if they get abused, they'd be like, haha, she got the same black man. But one of the silencing tactics that they'll use is like, if you're an exotical who uses any beauty enhancements, if you're an exotical who wears a weave, or let's say you like want to stay light skinned, you don't want to get a tan, or you want to fade your tan, so you're using kojic acid, which I've talked about, by the way, which is how I know that Paris Milan is certainly using kojic acid, because if you're not careful with kojic acid and MSM and glutathione and stuff, people do actually use those things to change their whole entire skin tone. But if you're an exotical who uses any form of beauty enhancements, or you want to increase your social power, people in Blackistan will call you self-hating. And they're saying that because they want you to stop doing what you're doing. They don't like how you're privilege stacking. They don't like that you can get away with using beauty enhancements and actually being successful. They don't like that you can get away with remaining as light-skinned as possible and that you're not scared of being called a colorist. They're hoping that you're scared of name calling. So be sure to check out Iconic Exotica's YouTube channel. She actually just made a video about this. But they're hoping that by calling you self-hating, or by calling you insecure or whatever, or an Uncle Tom or Uncle Ruckus, they're trying to use name calling to shame you into silence. They're hoping that you will respond and say, oh, okay, well, she called me Uncle Ruckus. Okay, let me just get off YouTube now. Oh, okay, well, they think I'm self-hating, so let me just try to tan my skin as dark as possible now and try to be as unambiguous as possible and go back to the unambiguous community. They're so used to being able to use narcissistic gaslighting against members of their own community, they're hoping that you have that same fear. And so that's why they're trying to say, you guys are all self-hating, because they want you to change your behavior and jump through hoops to prove to them that you're not self-hating. So they're hoping that you have a fear of being called colorist. I'm not scared of people calling me colorist. I'm not scared of people calling me self-hating. Trust me, I've been called way worse names than that. So people will try to call you all of these names because they want to scare you back into the unambiguous community so that they can go back to hiding behind you. I've talked about this. They do this with Dominicans. They do this with Ethiopian people. Anyone who is a non-white passing, extremely beautiful woman who benefits from an ism, they will fight tooth and nail to call you an unambiguous black woman. Why? Because you're beautiful. So they want to use you as their beauty representation. But don't fall for it, because obviously they're going to get mad at you later on for having that pedestal of being the ultimate black beauty standard. They only fight to keep you in the black community when you meet the black beauty standard. This is why they fight over Beyonce. This is why they fight over Lori Harvey. This is why they fight over Rihanna. I don't see them saying, oh, we don't want Rihanna and Beyonce to represent us. We'd rather have Whoopi Goldberg or Precious or what's the girl from Romeo and Juliet? They didn't like her being their representation. For Juliet, they fought tooth and nail to be portrayed as love interests. That was one of the main arguments in the colorism space. Dark-skinned, unambiguous black women are never portrayed as the love interests in film or in media. And they finally got what they wanted, but they didn't like that woman representing them. Why? Because they said she wasn't pretty enough. They would have rather had Zendaya. In fact, they even brought up Zendaya's name, saying that she should have played Juliet instead. So they have this habit of constantly hiding behind lighter-skinned women, hiding behind biracial women, hiding behind women who have green eyes like Rihanna, hiding behind women who have naturally sandy brown hair and kind of this golden skin tone like Beyonce, when they know damn well that the majority of the unambiguous black community does not look like that in everyday life. And so the Exoticals, we actually acknowledge that. They told us to acknowledge our privilege, and we are finally acknowledging our privilege, and now suddenly we have blown up the entire beluga whale empowerment sector on YouTube. But number 3, reason why black women are suddenly silent on colorism. It's because they can't weaponize their anonymity against Exoticals anymore. So, by the way, one of the reasons that people are attempting to try to dox all of the Exoticals, they're pulling up all these pictures claiming that they suddenly know who all of us are or whatever. They're doing that because they feel like anonymity on YouTube is a weapon, right? You get to protect your privacy while talking shit. And so they're trying to take away the power of anonymity. And they're hoping that by quote unquote exposing you somehow, that it's going to change your talking points or that you'll get scared and like get off YouTube. So Chrissy was the biggest colorism content creator who used her anonymity to get her message across for dark-skinned black women. And that's fine. I mean, I'm not against that. But now all of us ambiguous black women took a page out of their own book. And now we've got over 60 anonymous exotical content creators. So from here on out, we are now giving them a taste of their own medicine. Do you see the response? Do you see how they don't like it when you use their same exact strategy and actually succeed and do it better than they did? It's like, okay, you guys had no problem having anonymous channels. And also notice how like in the colorism sector, people were not going out of their way to really like try to find who Chrissy is or try to find who all of the anonymous colorism content creators were. No. They only do that to the Exoticals. Why? Because we are perceived as the pretty girls on the pedestal. If you are an exotical, if you benefit from an ism, whether you're dark-skinned or light-skinned, you are the ultimate beauty standard for a lot of unambiguous black women. So that's why they're trying to go out of their way to like find who all the exoticals are. And like they're saying all these different rumors and conspiracies about us. And they're doing that because you are the one that's on the pedestal. So that's why they're trying to like pull up your picture and like examine it like, oh, how is she so beautiful? Is her hair real? Is she using makeup? Is she using filters? Does she have extensions? People only do that to you when you are on the pedestal and when you have the pretty privilege. Number 4, reason why the colorism content has died on YouTube. It's because of the rise of the decentering men movement. This channel is actually one of the leading channels in the decentering men algorithm, according to my analytics. So a lot of colorism content was extremely male-centered around who black men prefer or who white men prefer, who has a greater chance to be in a hypergamous relationship with a man, what celebrity gets more of the male gaze. So their content was very male-centered and very focused on competing with other women in hopes to snag one of these quote-unquote high-value, hypergamous romantic relationships. So this channel is one of the leading channels in the decentering men sector, or kind of like the feminism sector, I guess. So I have over 60 videos on decentering men just in general and kind of like the reasons why you should decenter them. This channel actually focuses on reality. Okay, we understand that statistically, if you have a boyfriend, there's a 70% chance you will break up. The average long-term relationship lasts for 2 years and 4 months. The average marriage lasts for 9 years, and there's a 50% chance of divorce. Usually, marriages start to fall apart around 7 years. That's why they call it the 7-year itch. So this channel actually focuses on real statistics, whereas a lot of the colorism content was really just femcel fantasy content. It was playing into women's romantic fantasies because a lot of women who watched the colorism content were women who were validation starved. And they said this themselves. If you don't believe me, go watch Chrissy's channel, go watch O Stefko's channel, go watch Rashida Strober's channel. I've got plenty of TikToks that you guys have sent me of women admitting that they are validation starved, that they're love starved. I've got a video coming out soon where I'm going to be reacting to a woman. She literally was screaming because she had never kissed a man. Like, she was screaming in anger and posting videos because she was so mad that she had never had a man want to kiss her. So a lot of the colorism content was unambiguous Black women profiting off of the insecurities of their fellow dark-skinned Black women and kind of like convincing them of how much the world hates them, or kind of convincing them of how undesirable they are. The exotical space doesn't do that because obviously we have dark-skinned exoticals here. And so we actually have an entire, like, I have a whole dark femininity series on here. I've got a privilege stacking series on here. I've got a social climbing series on here. Those are 3 different things, by the way. So we have all kinds of diverse level up strategies that we use. Whereas a lot of the colorism content creators, they were not focused so much on that. They were more so just speculating about who NBA players want to date. That's really what it was. It was really just celebrity commentary content about what light-skinned girl he's dating now, or, you know, what white woman he's dating now, and this is who they really choose, and he's dusty because he got with a white woman. Number 5, colorism content provided little to no solutions. They would tell you to go where you're celebrated, but they don't tell you where you're actually celebrated or how to be celebrated. And that is still an external locus of control. So depending on the celebration of others, that should only be a stream of micro-validation. That shouldn't be your only stream of confidence. By the way, be sure to check out my video about creating multiple streams of micro-validation. Just like how you create multiple streams of income, you want to create multiple streams of validation. So for example, some of my micro-validation streams are, I have a whole pretty privilege routine, my self-care routine, my likes and followers, whether it's on this YouTube channel, whether it's on my other social media accounts. I've got a family that I love. I have friends that I love. For some of you guys, you're doing casual dating, or you have a roster, or you know what I mean? You want to have multiple streams of micro-validation. Having a career, maybe you're educated, maybe you've written books outside of this, you have a podcast or something. All of those things help you to build confidence. Having achievements in life help you to build a sense of confidence. Getting a man should not be something that you view as like an achievement, like, oh, this is the ultimate achievement. It's to be married. Well, that's extremely male-centered. I mean, if you want to be male-centered, but I'm just saying that if you allow other people to determine your worth, then that gives the man all the power. Now he gets to dangle a relationship in front of you like a carrot. Now he can dangle marriage in front of you like a carrot. So that's one of the social climbing mistakes that they made on these colorism and like these divestment channels. It was putting marriage and relationships with non-Black men on such a high pedestal to the point where now you've got men like Cohen Nanik, who's a content creator who makes money off of Black women kind of lusting and fantasizing over him. So now you're giving these men all of the social power. You're giving your power away. So a lot of the colorism content, they were depending on the validation of others, especially men, and especially white men. But this is the only space on YouTube that offers dozens of solutions to internalize colorism, texturism, and featureism, including getting rid of hierarchy thinking, building all those streams of micro-validation, doing social climbing, privilege stacking. You can go where you're celebrated as well, but what does that mean to you to be celebrated? Does it mean getting compliments? Whenever an unambiguous Black woman says you're being put on a pedestal, what she really means is you're being complimented. So imagine creating a whole YouTube channel because you're mad that you didn't receive enough compliments on your beauty. Number 6. Women have outgrown colorism channels because they would rather stalk the exotical space. Let's be honest, the exotical space is very entertaining, okay? We are the shit. I said what I said. Okay, the exoticals are very creative. Look at all of the beautiful exotical content creators. You got Dulce K, you've got Iconic Exotica, you got Pretty in Between. There's the exotic brown skin who talks about overcoming narcissistic abuse. There are so many other women. I can't remember all their names right now, but we have such entertaining and creative content to the point where the colorism channels, they can't even compete. So a lot of unambiguous black women would rather stalk the exotical space. They told us to get out of their spaces because they wanted exclusivity, but now that we have left their spaces, they want to follow us into our spaces. So they can try to maybe stalk us or dox us or just enjoy our content. So for a lot of these women, their lives are boring without exoticals. Their channels are boring without talking about exoticals. A lot of people think that I mainly talk about unambiguous black women on this channel. That's actually false. I schedule out my content. I only talk about unambiguous black women for around 40% of my content. Okay, so I've got over 800 videos. So that would mean that I have about 400 videos that have nothing to do with unambiguous black women. And it's true. Just look through my library of content. I have an entire library where I talk about all different kinds of topics. We've got an exotical story time series on here. Like there are so many other things that the exotical space talks about that are very enticing to women of all races. This is why I also have non-black women who follow this channel. By the way, be sure to follow Mestizas United because we do have a lot of like sister channels where they're non-black women. They have different admixtures and they're creating their own spaces and they're embracing their backgrounds. But the majority of the exotical content, like across all of our YouTube channels, it seems to be focused on leveling up, psychology, sociology, decentering men. But for most of the colorism channels, all they did was discuss the lives of the women who benefit from colorism, texturism, or featureism. Go watch their content and you'll see it. Go watch Chrissy's YouTube channel right now and you will see that she just made a video discussing the dating life of a light-skinned black woman celebrity named Halle Bailey. So a lot of their channel is really just celebrity content on light-skinned or mixed-race women or women who benefit from isms. Number 7. They can't make content without discussing MLS celebrities or speculating about the privileges we have. And since unambiguous black women are so curious about what our privileges are, I saw an opening in the market, and a lot of us exoticals are like, well, since they're so concerned about privileges, why not have the actual women who actually have these privileges speak on them? And so because of that, all of those followers from the other spaces, like the empowerment space, they're actually watching our channels now because we have more authority to speak on the privileges that we experience because we actually have the privileges. It could be texturism privilege, it could be featureism privilege, it could be light skin privilege, doesn't matter. We have the privileges. And so for these women who actually were curious about these privileges and what kind of lifestyle you can live based on those privileges, we are a more enticing market. Like we're more enticing and we're better at capturing the market because we are actually speaking from a place of privilege. Number 8. Reason why black women suddenly don't want to talk about colorism. It's because they can no longer speak on behalf of the women who benefit from the isms. A lot of their content was speculation and accusations against mixed race women or women who benefit from the isms. So now that we are finally speaking for ourselves, people would rather hear a person with that privilege begin to speak rather than someone guessing what it's like to be an exotical. Number 9, they can't argue with our talking points. A lot of colorism content was just femcel rage, where they daydreamed about replacing us, and they kind of daydreamed about having the same dating options as us. Number 10, people realized that those black women didn't even get along with other black women. Anytime you see a successful black woman creator, there's always another black woman creator who will try to drag her down. Look at Chrissy's history of how many women she has had beef with. She's had beef with, I think it was Paris Milan. She's had beef with like Pink Pill. All of these women who were like these black female content creators, they have all had beef with one another. And now look at how white supremacists and black supremacists are teaming up so they can try to beef with the exoticals. So a lot of these women, they cannot help but to constantly be in beef. Number 11, their content was unhelpful overall. It was just a bunch of anecdotal evidence about how much society hates unambiguous dark-skinned black women, which is not empowering. If you're teaching young girls that black men hate them and white Hollywood hates them and nobody's going to represent them and they're being incorrectly promoted, that doesn't do anything to help them feel empowered. So the difference between the black YouTube space and the exotical space is that we actually focus on practical strategies, and we also create custom content. And like for me, I take video requests and stuff in the Patreon and in the Discord. So the exoticals are directly steering the content of my channel. By the way, be sure to join the Patreon if you want to have priority on like what kinds of videos I create. Number 12, they can't handle the smoke from the exotical space. We actually make sense over here. Even if you go on like Dulce K's channel, she gets a lot of her sources from like academic journals. Like a lot of her talking points are coming from academic journals. I like to pull up the dictionary all the time and like pull up actual definitions on my channel. So they actually can't handle the smoke from our talking points. And so that's why they're trying to deflect by resorting to name calling and stuff like that, because they're hoping that they can control other people's perception of the exotical space. But it's not going to work. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.